Hey, Tony.
Yeah.
How are you?
Hey, Sam.
So there were four. Change, when you turn up strawberry, you change the function. Never like on those YouTube.
Did all your answers questions, or questions answered?
You sound like me today.
Hmm?
You just send this off to somebody. It's not gonna be done, but this is very vague. It's like I
Well,
originally
it goes
thought.
back to, we should have more information,
Right,
but that's up to the petitioner, that's their.
right.
but-
Well, I thought it was Clubhouse at the very beginning, that's why I didn't think anything of it. Then somebody said, hey, you get with them tonight, y'all get it tonight, which made me go back and question myself, which I should stop doing that. And I questioned myself. And I'm not the only one, but Neil bought it too. So I was like, then I heard it wasn't, so I was just kind of, I said, well, Jim's gonna think I'm the dumbest one who's ever had an account. But it was just confusing and vague, it still is eventually.
Well, did you hear what happened? Port City Daily ran an article.
Oh, I-
that was about the floating
Uh-huh,
restaurant.
yeah, I knew that, but I didn't read it.
Well, they retracted it.
I did.
And It was a big mistake. In fact, that reporter called me on the weekend, or called me on Saturday. So I know it was on it, but. So I talked to him and I told him, I said, I just don't have enough information to really comment on it. I don't want to comment because I don't.
She had it.
He said it's kind of vague. But it's asking. So he said, okay, great, thanks. And he would be here tonight. He's probably not here too, because he's probably, because Sam called him. According to the email that I got from Sam called him and said, this is all wrong.
What did the article say? Somebody told me there was one. I started reading.
It said it was related to the floating restaurant.
Yeah,
And it's not.
and then that would explain the person that told me because they read it in the thing and that's what.
Online today on the website, they've taken any reference to their offering information.
What about the picture of?
There wasn't anything, I'm sorry, to see. I haven't seen anything about it,
The still needs to be.
but you heard that from somebody.
The tape.
Hmm?
The guy who's like.
And y'all know we're live.
Say what?
We're live.
Realize?
No,
But, I mean, was talking about the Port City.
No, I know. Yeah, I just wanted, I didn't know if you knew that.
no, we didn't. Thank you.
I forgot.
He came on at like 10 minutes.
They didn't hear
20
me,
after.
they didn't hear me wanting to be a hoghead, so they.
Well, I said, I thought it was Rick.
I just lived through a nightmare, by the way.
What
I
happened?
went to get that key out of the
Oh, your
box.
hand gets shot?
No, I opened up the box and I stuck it out, I grabbed it, and it's like my hand just went through like spider webs.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say a snake.
Yeah.
Oh,
Remind
yeah.
me, and
Yeah,
I'll
at
tell
least
you.
there wasn't a snake in there.
Remind me and I'll tell you.
Somebody was using the pickleball court and they couldn't find a place to put the key, so they dropped it in the
And she opened the door.
Okay, I'll get scared.
You're lucky it wasn't a copperhead.
Oh, girl, there was a guy working on the house in the mountains, and he put boosting our internet, and we get this, so I have little aluminum things that I use for mice or skinks, sticky paper on it. Well, anyway, he's underneath the porch, and he said this copperhead slithered by, went out, and that thing, I got a picture of it.
Mm.
It looked, I don't think it's that big, because that box isn't.
It doesn't matter if it's 2 inches or 2 feet, it does not matter.
Did you see
Probably.
the one that somebody posted on next door?
Uh-uh.
That copperhead was huge.
My
Everybody was
best-
talking about how
Are
huge
these
it
on
was.
the island?
I don't see, I
I don't
don't,
think this one.
we
was. I
have
think
king
it was-
snakes, but, lot of king snakes, but they eat the dew wraps, you know.
Mhm.
They don't hurt you to make you hurt yourself getting out of the way. But,
Yeah, she didn't go to her.
I had my best friend, my college roommate, we're still best friends. She let her dog out one night at 3 in the morning. It was raining. He wouldn't come back. He would come on the property, he stood there and looked at her. And she was like, come on,
Well,
come on.
that
And
thing
he
is,
she went to step out to get him and she. had
It looks
flip-flops,
bigger than I
and she
think
stepped
it
on the
is.
top of her head. It was coiled up in front of
I
her
hope it was a
door to get her out of the rain and bit her 3 times.
Oh,
She had to drive herself to the ER. It kept her for like the whole night into the next day. Markings on legs. And it's like a horse here, stupid amount of
In
like.
front of us is the whole story.
Right.
And then there is.
You know,
And it
you know,
must
some
have
people need to get it
slithered
done.
past him,
Mm.
'cause he was
She,
putting
they
that
just
just
had, they
like
kept rocking their leg and kept swell, they come.
And he said it must have slithered.
Because if
past
you got
him
to a
and
certain
found
point,
it.
you have to
mm.
bit her 3 times. The first strike, I didn't know it could bite you that many times. And leave venom. The first bite got her inside the archer with flip flop, and the rest of them weren't even getting. Yeah. That crazy. And they'll bite your dog like they're doing your dog.
Oh, yeah, my next door neighbor started, this is over in Wake Forest, they're not full-time residents, but they,
Well, she's got to have an antibiotic.
their dog, big dog, was bit by a copperhead, and
Usually get them around their feet or their lips.
he
Snap.
got his snap.
Yeah.
He's okay, but fortunately, they knew what happened.
Yeah, just had a friend of mine's dog, they put a picture of him, they shaved his little leg, his IDs in.
Yeah.
It is.
See if we got any more information.
We're north of the. We're in between Roseboro.
No. Just what we got in our packet.
Oh, yeah. These are our deer cameras. That's good. It's a band. Yeah. This is the papa bear, I think. That's small, so that's the. Turned it out, turned it deer cam, and then there's another one that's the baby cubs. No, there's mama bear and baby cubs. Just, I mean, what's that? That's another, so they're like, it goes down the hill, there's these 2 deer feeders, we put corn in, we don't hunt them or anything, we just feed them. They came to the house, so we just put deer corn in them, and so they're just. But they smell cool. They do, so we stopped putting deer corn for about a month, because they told me birds feed and deer corn is attractive.
Yeah.
And we can hear the coyotes, so we knew they were close, so I don't go outside unless I have, a flashlight. Or a stick or something, I have a big walking stick that I'll take out there.
Because you got little dogs.
Yeah, and they're in a fence, but they can get through, and I have to walk, put the chicken wire kind of stuff.
Those coyotes can leap over that. They can leap
Big
like that.
turnout.
Are you kidding? That's why.
Can't see, I got glasses and I still can't see y'all. Is that number right there? 18 or 16?
I think it's 18.
It is a great community.
So it's not me, it's just print.
It's very small. In fact, when I was looking at it on the computer, I had to enlarge that sheet. Well, I have 5:30, so I'll call the meeting to order. Do we know if Neil's connected?
I believe I'm connected.
Great, thank you. Good
Thank
deal.
you.
Well, I'd ask if everyone would stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
States of America,
and to the
the
republic
republic, to which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all.
Robert, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We were getting a little bit of feedback during the Pledge of Allegiance from Neil, so I don't know if there's something you can adjust.
Let me walk in there and we'll check it out.
Okay, thank you.
I've muted my microphone. I'll remute it I am in a very hollow place, so if there's an echo, I will mute it mostly.
Okay, thanks. We just don't want anybody to miss anything. The first item is the approval of the minutes from September 7. Does anybody have any comments, changes?
Can you say something, Neil?
No, I did not.
Can you?
We'll just turn the gain down a little bit. It should. Try again.
Hello.
There you go.
I'm gonna, okay.
Thank you. Everybody good with the minutes or?
Yes, I didn't see anything.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And Robert, we don't need to do roll call vote on this stuff, do we? It's
All right.
recorded, right? So,
We are recording and live streaming.
okay. So the next item under new business is agenda item A. Review and discuss a text amendment adding sections 155.9.6, E, 2, C, and D, adding the means for contiguous lot shared driveways. And I think we'll hear from Tony first.
Chairman Smith, and members of the planning board, we did receive this request, staff did on September the 1st, 2021. The text amendment was received, application from Mr. Jimmy Hopkins and Mr. Chris Dunn for a text amendment to amend the driveway ordinance, chapter 155, 9.6 E, 2, and C. The background for this text amendment, our current ordinances at this time does not allow for a common shared driveways for duplexes or single families. And you see under E there on page 8, this is the text amendment. In the event duplexes on directly abutting adjoining lots wish to share a driveway along a common property line, then said duplexes may install one driveway along the common property line with the overall total width of the two driveways not to exceed 30 feet, including flares, and which otherwise meets the requirements of the driveway construction set forth herein. Staff analysis of this proposed text amendment would have, the duplexes would have 1 30-foot driveway or 2 15s on each duplex. But if the proposed driveway text amendment is approved, we feel like this would preserve some public parking spaces in town and reduce the overall width from 60 feet to 30 feet. So let's go to page 9. Well, excuse me. We put the example of the proposed driveway. Let's look at that. And that's on page 13. So if you see this, you see there's one driveway, 30 feet. And there's nothing special about this. Well, let's say they did do the shared driveway. This unit to the left could have a driveway 30 feet. The other unit could have another 30-foot driveway on this side, or 2 15-foot separate driveways. So when staff talked to these individuals, we just said we couldn't approve it. You got to do a text amendment, and they come up with this idea here. Department review, we sent this out to the police department, fire, and public works. There were no comments back from those departments. This is consistent with our CAMA land use plan 5.8. Public notice, we did advertise for this meeting. And staff comments, we feel like the planning board staff recommends the planning board forward a favorable recommendation to the Board of Aldermen to approve the text amendment to chapter 155 9.6. You have the text amendment application, the example of proposed driveway in ordinance number 2021-1833. And there's nothing special when you look at the driveway, you look at the layout of these properties, the properties still have to meet, they're meeting setbacks and maybe more than setbacks. So they're still meeting, the structures are meeting 15 feet front, 7.5 sides and rear. And when you get to the shared property line, it's even more than this, actually 18 feet there. So they're not getting anything special as far as floor area ratio or variances or anything like that. They're just going to be able to share a driveway on the center of the common property line. And maybe they get a little, and when Mr. John Jarvis gets up there, maybe they get a little better design on the structures as far as design. If you got any questions for me, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Did you get any response to the public notice? Has anybody come forth? And then my only other question is, do both lots meet the standard pervious requirements?
Yes, they'll have to do stormwater, and the lots are still just common. They're still 50 foot by 100 lots, so they're not anything special, or they're not like 40 and you combine it, so there's nothing special there. The floor area ratio will still be the same. They have to have a stormwater system for this application.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Tony?
I do. How does this compare to the driveway I was talking to you about earlier? Is this a shorter driveway? They don't have to do the divider in the middle and the gravel?
In other words, they could, this one, exactly, there's not going to be the divider or anything like that. This is just a straight 30 feet.
Mhm.
And then a duplex, the ones right down the street could do, if they choose to do a duplex, they can do what the ordinance says. They can do a complete 30 feet or separate them 215 separated.
Mhm.
So this is,
So in comparison to the house I was speaking to you about, Wayne, that had asked me a question about their driveway, this is a totally different.
it's
lane.
totally, completely different,
Okay.
yes. Mhm.
I have a question, Jim.
Okay.
Tony, I don't know that it's stipulated that this was pervious or impervious surface, but it seems to me that this is more covered surface than would normally happen if it was done separately. Is that correct?
I think I could look at that and say, yeah, that could be. There could be more concrete. Neil, that's a good question. But they still, when individuals build these houses and structure, it still has to be taken care of with a stormwater design. So whatever they do here, it has to be taken care of on site. And I think when Mr. John Jarvis comes up, he can talk to you about the stormwater runoff on this concrete pad.
Thank you.
So are we ready to hear from the petitioner? I believe we are.
Okay.
Silence me, we are. And just please state your name and address.
Evening board, my name is John Jarvis. I live at 211 North Channel. I work with PBC Design and Build, and we're located at 3902 Market Street. And thank you for reviewing this tonight. We are proposing the duplexes on 8 Columbia, Lot 4 and Lot 6. And I'm glad to answer any questions or concerns you guys have on your end. I think one reason why we considered doing this project, if you look at the beach, we do a lot of work. I'm currently building 123 and 125 South Lumina, and those are side-by-side duplexes. Different type of architecture. It's a quintessential Wrightsville Beach cottage approach, where this is more of a cleaner lines cottage, modern look to it. But as far as the streetscape and why we would like to be a part of this process, as far as the streetscape, when you walk down Columbia, we're not trying to maximize. Most beach houses are 34, 8 inches wide on a typical 50-foot lot. They're always trying to maximize the width. The width on these structures here are 25 feet, 6 inches. So we didn't maximize the width there. We didn't maximize the width on the driveways, as opposed to going 60 feet on the street coverage of Columbia. We're proposing 30 feet, and we're able to save 2 parking spots. An already pretty congested area. That's the central business district area, and it's pretty tight on Columbia. So we're able to preserve that with this design. Neil, your question about the impervious, if you do the math on it, there is a little bit more driveway impervious. We could probably net that out with touching the design. to get it back to standard, if we work on the driveway entryway, perhaps. But like Tony Wilson said, with what we're proposing, driveways and the surface area of the impervious surface area of the structures, they will all meet the town's required stormwater design.
And so the reason that they want to do this is to give them more parking, or
It would
to
create.
have it a nicer look, or is it?
Yeah, so if you look at, I'll use Columbia, for instance. I mean, that's, if you walk down that street, there's several multifamily structures. Everything is forward facing. Everything kind of faces and embraces Columbia, which isn't really anything to embrace. It's an old street with old beach houses. This was kind of a closed, what I call a closed design, where it's kind of internally facing. And so it's just breaking up the monotonous box with, the plaguing driveways in every single box. It's just a way for us to break up the norm and still feel like it conforms with the streetscape and does less visual impaction, we feel, on the streetscape. Because, we're basically, the structure is narrowed by about 9.5 feet compared to a typical, if we would go from the standard design, we would push the design to 34 8 inches. We're at 25 and 6 inches. So I think visually it helps that street. And then also it would create possible, we'll meet the town requirement of 2 parking spots in the garages, but I think we can also capture another 2 to 4 other parking spaces on site for the homeowners as well.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. As I understand it, we're talking about 4 units, two back to back.
Yes, sir. Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. So, and as you go, and I think it says 4-story.
Yes, it did say 4-story. I read that.
Do the floors above the ground floor cantilever towards the drive space?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's that from the property line in the center divide. If you take lot 4 and lot 6, the garage door is about, or the stairwell exterior wall is about 16 feet 3 inches to the property line.
Right, that's what you're showing now. Well, Neil asked one of my questions, does it cantilever, and you answered that. One of the concerns I have, and you already touched on it, is that people would be parking in the drive area as well as the garages. And that will become, I guess, is this going to be a condo association?
Yes, sir.
Well,
There'll be 2 separate HOAs.
okay.
8 Columbia,
And-
4, lot 4, 8 Columbia, lot 6, or something like that. I don't know.
Gotcha.
But yeah, they will be 2 separate associations with a common shared driveway, and then we can produce that with the condo docs and all that for the town.
I guess I just envision on busy weekends and stuff that these people will get together and park 4 or 5 cars in the driveway as well as garages. And guess who's going to get the call about that? The town. But I guess, we just,
Why would they, if they're the people that own it, why would they call the town?
because some of the owners are going to say, well, we didn't agree to this, and they're blocking driveways and garages. And I know you've had that problem down on
Didn't agree to what?
all this parking business in front of the garages and everything, and blocking the
Is
driveway.
this brand new? Is this gonna be a brand new place? And
Yes,
if
Yeah,
they- If they
yeah.
buy it, then they pretty much know this exists, right?
Pardon me?
If they buy it, they know that it exists.
Correct.
I mean, it's not like they walked in and said, oh, wow, I didn't know this was gonna happen, because it's already there.
No, I agree with you. I'm just
Yeah,
perceiving.
I
It'd
just-
be kind of cool what you just said earlier, if you planted some, trees or plants or something in there and and soften it up maybe in the back at least, that would prevent people from doing that.
Yeah, Josh Mahaley, a landscape architect here in town, he'll be doing the landscape plan for us. We use him on most of our jobs. So this is the designer, developer / builder site plan. I mean, just kind of black and white. Josh will have to soften that stuff there. And I still think we'll be able to create, we meet the town's requirements for parking, for development,
Mhm.
but I think we can go above that too. But I just need to connect with Josh on that.
Well, and they'll be able to buy parking passes for the
Yeah.
street,
Right.
so,
And if we can keep those two, that's,
well, each unit would be entitled to two, yeah. That's just a concern. I'm not saying I'm against it.
Jim, to your point, I don't see 2 parking spaces for the public becoming accessible. Given the density of that, those 2 parking spaces, in all likelihood, would be taken by people who have parking passes.
That's the way it is everywhere.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've got a parking pass. I can never use it. I don't know why I buy it every year.
So to use these garages, is a car able to turn within its own specific drive, or does it need to be able to cross over to the other drive? And if there's a car parked there, can they actually do it?
in development, you need about 30 feet to make a radius on a big vehicle. Obviously you can do it with less if you had a smaller vehicle. But yeah, that would be a shared drive.
Right.
And they would have to center line that, and then they can J into their garage.
So I have a question. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Nell. I didn't-
Oh, yeah, just to finish up, if I heard how you were going to deed this as 2 separate, homeowner associations. So how does this driveway get dealt with as a common issue between the 2? If they depend upon the other side and that's not their HOA?
Yeah, that's a good question. So on 123, 125 South Lumina, there'll be easements drawn in, and I mean, we're not done with that project yet, but we'll be sharing that with the town. There's some utilities in that area. There's some electrical, water, a bunch of stuff going in this easement. I would imagine it would be the same way. It would be in the condo docs for that. And then if we needed to create some sort of maintenance plan for the stormwater system or how the engineers design that, we can do that as well.
123 and 125 Lumina.
That's right down
That's
for me.
currently what we're building. But this is a different.
Right, but I'm assuming you referred to that it's coming in with the same layout, or is it a different layout?
Totally different, sorry.
That's,
Okay.
yeah, that
I was
was
just-
really
That's
jammed
the
in there.
oceanfront
Yes, ma'am.
places. Yeah, those
That's
are
the-
almost finished, aren't
I wish.
I know.
December.
they? Yeah.
But that's a
so-
small, is that a smaller, because I live right down the street from that, they don't have much driveway.
No,
You're
that's
gonna
an
have to kind
over,
of
that's
pull in and
a,
go right
that's an
in.
over and under.
Mhm.
And we're doing 2 separate, so that's a good example though. On that same width, 100 feet wide, we're taking up about 60 feet of road frontage.
Mm.
Where this, we're at 100 wide, same width, and we're proposing to take 30 feet. And then that would allow us to get the structures how we think look good and also preserve the 2 parking spots.
Well, I think it's a pretty cool concept, and Dave always tries to think out of the box, so
Yeah, that's why, I
I
mean,
think it's
before we even, got involved with these developers, I obviously met with Dave and I connected with Tony and Robert and Tim, and I asked them, is this a good idea? We think it's a good idea. We're used to working on historic district and tight lots and development and all that kind of stuff, but we felt like it was a good project. We'd like to be a part of it. And that's when we came to Tony and said, hey, I don't want to pitch something because we can change the design. We can do side by side. I can do over and under. We can do a lot of different things, but we really wanted to avoid that. Again, that 34-foot wide box, the 2 driveways, taking the parking spot. I mean, we do that,
yeah, I can see where this way we would get 2 on-street parking instead of just 1, or none probably with the other.
Yeah, those would go,
We
those would
wouldn't
go
get
away.
any.
These 2 existing would have to go away.
Isn't this concept already kind of, don't we already see this on Siegel Street for the new condos that were built over
Those
by
were-
Johnny
we-
Mercer's?
we-
You go in and.
Yeah, we
and
build those, but those are over and unders,
Right,
over and under duplexes, and then
but they have a shared common driveway in the back of all of those.
they do almost like an alley, but it's almost like an alley load.
Right.
As
Mhm.
opposed to like a center courtyard load or
Mhm.
a J load. like
Right.
those ones are.
But this is,
As opposed to side by side
Mhm.
duplexes being 16 feet, 8 inches wide.
right,
We got them side by side, but back to front, which is, you don't see that because you don't have that alley
Mhm.
access. So that's the kind of take on this particular structure. I think that's what makes it neat, because we get, all sides get light, as
Mhm.
opposed to two sides or
right.
three sides.
Any other
Jim?
questions? Oh,
Jim,
Nick.
Jim, I do have some questions, but I think they're for Tony.
You're on deck, Tony. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.
Tony, can you please explain what the requirements are regarding stormwater? And I'll just lead with saying that I assume it's to minimize storm water, the need to collect it rather than it have percolate into the soil. So creating stormwater pooling and needing to collect it is not what we really want, but it will happen and we have to deal with it. I'm just wondering the philosophy behind it and what the requirements are around it.
The systems, there's a design manual that the engineer has to apply this to. It works good, great in some areas. Some areas like Harbor Island is very difficult. This area here may be somewhat different. They can use different, I've seen engineers do some different concepts on containing it. Typically, it's an underground storage tank that filters out just like a septic tank. I've seen some engineers design it with some swells, let's say in the back of the house, to store the water. Maybe on Harbor Island, the swells work better than a in-ground system because the water table is so high there. So you have different designs. There's a design manual. I think I'm not sure what kind of storm it's for, but as we all can contest to, they're not going to, if it's a rainstorm of 10 inches in an hour or something, it's not going to contain that. It's going to get into the system and it's going to run out. But it's designed for over a period of time, maybe 24 hours or something like that.
Is this property associated in any way to any of the downtown flooding events by loggerheads there?
You know what? If you've ever been there, it does. Let me say the existing structure that's there never had a system. So it's higher. So I'm assuming it did get a lot of runoff from there. So I'm sure it does contribute. All those properties does do that. With the system, I think it will help the stormwater system. But I'm assuming that it's going to have some runoff after, if it's a big storm, that the system can only take so much and then it would spill out into the street. So
Do we have any relevant pervious requirements that could be applied here?
no, you see some areas or some towns will do pervious concretes or pervious pavers. You'll see that.
Mhm.
Sur City's got it. To me, I don't know if I like pervious concrete. It probably works good in the beginning when it's maintained. If you see some of our parking lots, public parking lots, you'll notice they're built in a hole. And that's the reason the town didn't put a stormwater system in. It contains itself on the lot itself. So that's why you see there's not a system. It was designed for it to stay on those parking lots. So I'm sure this had some effect on the downtown area. The stormwater system, as we all know, is not going to be a perfect system. It's not going to contain everything, but it contains most of it. And there's no system there today at all. So
Okay.
That whole street is naturally elevated.
yes,
So
high,
everything's.
and
gonna
everything's
go down.
going to sheet
Right.
flow down to log areas into that. Yeah.
Switching gears to, I'm sorry, if there's relevant questions on this subject, I'll be quiet.
And the town did do some improvements on the drainage on Sweeney Street there, Channel Avenue. That has helped with some of the neighbors where Jim used to live there on Channel Avenue. The town just finished up some engineering. I think it did help the last couple of weeks of some of those storms down there on Channel Avenue, so.
Switching gears to the comments around Seagull as an example. Tony, do you know how, is there a common homeowners association for that cluster of buildings in that development
I think
between
there
Seagull
is.
and Salisbury?
I think there is, I'm not sure, but I walked that alley before and it seems pretty tight to me, and somehow it works, because if you were one of those owners, you could park your vehicle and probably block everybody, but as far as I know, I've never got a complaint from that area there. And they have they have a lot more units than just these 4 units here. So it must be working there somehow, self-policing or whatever there, so.
Does the town get involved in any way in how these properties are deeded when they're built?
No. The only thing that we do, this is what typically happens, the contractor is going to build these as 1 and 2 family dwellings. After they're built and sold, they come in as a condominium. They'll do condominium documents. I review the surveys that typically the attorney will look at the covenants, is what we typically do.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Tony or the petitioner? Anyone care to make a motion?
I would like to discuss a couple issues, Jim, if we could.
Oh, I thought you said you were done. Okay. I took your silence as being done. Go ahead.
I didn't want to monopolize the questioning. I have 2 question marks that I wonder if there's some insight we might provide here. And the one is on the stormwater, because it is potentially a larger covered area. If there's any kind of suggested requirements that could be put forward to that, it is uphill and it does move, downhill the water. I'm not an expert in any way in pervious surfaces or water runoff, but that's the question mark I have is there something that can be more explicitly done to deal with that? And then on the other one, I don't know if we have other examples we can tap into, but this shared piece of property or access to this property, but is kind of a not clarity on the responsibilities for it. It bothers me a little bit. It's clear for the homeowner associations, but not between homeowner associations. And it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like unless it's clearly covered in documentation. I know it was suggested, well, something might be able to be written in or such. Those are the 2 question marks I have.
Can you clarify about responsibility?
Cheryl, is that a question to me?
Yeah, I'm trying to fit responsibility for what?
Maintenance of it, access to it. The example where one side, I know houses that rent and 7 cars show up for what is maximum a 3-car driveway.
But that issue is going to be in any duplex situation on this beach, regardless if they're interfacing or not. If you've got a duplex and you have a driveway that you're going to have that issue because you have to have common areas. Am I not right? On any duplex, you're going to have that issue.
Yeah, but here it's between 2 different sets of duplexes. It's not just within the duplex.
So it's ×2, but the issue still exists on a duplex.
Yeah, and the petitioner did say that there is going to be cross easements for the issue that you raised about turning radius into the garages and so forth.
Yeah, well, and as Kitty said, and let the buyer beware, you're gonna know what exists. I was just
Right.
raising the flag that if we don't have previous examples of this, I feel it's truly potentially a problem, but it's a problem for the sets of owners that exist.
Exactly.
Right.
I don't think it's a town problem.
Yeah.
We just don't want them calling the town about it.
I watch it all the time on my street, shared
Yeah.
driveways, and they're backing cars out. Everybody's backing out, waiting, and everybody's moving another car, and they're shooting the other one. We see it all the time, because that's all my street is duplexes.
Well, you got all these old
And shared
houses that
parking.
rent out the downstairs because they're pre-existing and, you know, you get in that same issue. So, I mean, I agree what he's saying. But there's not a whole lot I think this
Yeah,
board can do about
Yeah, and I
that.
don't think it's
Right.
really our place to.
I'm favorable to this in so many ways, but I would like a message to go with whatever the vote is to the alderman that says, at least these are two watchouts that came up. There's maybe others, but these are two watchouts, and that is that the stormwater can be adequately dealt with, given that this is a larger covered area than would normally occur. And then the other, and just as well, hey, it frees up 2 parking spaces on the street. It's fair to put that in there as well. But the other one is that that there's one aspect of complexity between 2 different sets of homeowner associations sharing that common area. That's all. Obviously that's part of our vote. You vote to put it there or you don't put it.
Well, I would just imagine that that's part of whatever, if it's an LLC or homeowners, that's for them to decide to deal with when they buy into the condominiums. I mean, that's typically left up to the owners, not.
I don't disagree with that at all, but
Yeah.
what I'm saying is based on the fact that we're an advisory board to the Board of Aldermen, and the advice is, here's an issue. It may not be a compelling issue to not vote for it, but just that your eyes are fully wide open if you didn't have time to think it through and come up with some of these concerns on your own.
Is there a reason you didn't do one homeowners association and you did 2 separate ones? Could you do one?
From a development standpoint, you know, just on 123, 125 South Lumina, I've lived in condos and townhomes, and I've had, you know, I've lived in 2-packs and 4-packs, and it was always, you could get one guy to agree, but you couldn't get the other 2 to agree. So we just found that it's more simple to separate them, and you're only dealing with your neighbor.
Mhm.
As far as the condo documentation, the easements, or how, Neil, the other thing is we haven't fully civil engineered the stormwater yet. So how we arrange that is, it's going to conform. The delta between what we can do if we maximize the impervious surface area and conform to the already existing town ordinance to what we're proposing now, it's really, really close. And we're not talking about we're adding another 1,000 square feet. I mean, we're talking, it's very, very close math.
Do you have a ballpark?
I can do the math and follow up with Tony on it. 200 square feet, maybe. And we could, Neil, we could feel good from the credit standpoint on stormwater and do pervious concrete or pervious pavers. And I've got a concrete background. I know that a lot of municipalities have proposed pervious concrete. That was a big thing 10 years ago, and we got credits. I think it was a 30% credit. And you know, you see them in Mayfair, or Live Oak Bank did it. The maintenance on that thing never happens. It's actually a heavy maintenance schedule. You have to have a vacuum, you have to have certain equipment that nobody has in town. And then once sand fills the voids in that, like grout, then that impervious surface area is now impervious. And so, and they've also now designed the system to not receive as much stormwater now, because they got the credits for that. So I think the way the town of Wrightsville Beach handles the stormwater is the correct way from an environmental standpoint. You know, it's one thing to get the credits and feel good from that context, but the longevity of the system, needs to be more bulletproof than a subsurface system is more bulletproof than a surface system. And I think that's probably why the town of Wrightsville Beach hasn't adopted the pervious stance like other neighbors to the north of us have.
Okay, thank you very much.
And then your other concern too, we can get the condo documentation. I'm confident in that. That's just terminology and not even buyer beware. The 4 homeowners that are buying our other condos, I mean, we're neighbors. I mean, a lot of our staff live here. Our owners both live here. I mean, this is our backyard. We don't want to, cause an issue for Tony, for the town or anything like that. So, but Neil, I appreciate your concern.
Thanks for your explanation.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Any other questions, Neil? Did you hear that?
I heard it all. Thank you very much. I'm good.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Did you say you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Leanne is going to make a motion.
Okay. I'll make a motion to send a favorable to the Board of Aldermen for text amendment 155.9.6. Do I do the E2 and C? That's right here.
Say that again, Leanne.
E2 and C.
E2 and C.
Probably to be thorough, yeah.
Make a motion. I second.
Okay, Leanne has made the motion. Kitty has seconded. Is there any further discussion? I actually have one comment real quick before we vote. So are you going to note to the report to the alderman that we do have a concern about stormwater?
Yes, I'll put those 2 questions about the different HOAs, and then I'll put in there about the stormwater, the sheet runoff from that, and along with this recommendation, yes.
Great. So
Thank you.
you're good with that one, Neil?
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Robert, that was unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
So we will move on to, flip back here again, agenda item B. Review and discuss a text amendment adding sections 155.7.31 Marina Clubhouse, 155.6.4 Marina Clubhouse as a special use in the C3 district, A3 definition of Marina Clubhouse, and add 155.6.5.5 subsection K setback and lot exceptions for Marina Clubhouse. And I assume we'll hear from Tony again.
Chairman Smith and members of the planning board, this zoning text amendment would only apply to the C3 commercial district. We did receive this application on August the 31st, 2021. Text amendment application from Mr. Matt Nichols. He is here tonight. He is the authorized agent for the Wrightsville Yacht Club. And you see the overview of the text amendment on page 17. The first one is going to be adding a new section 155.7.31 Marina Clubhouse. Number 2, we're going to be amending section 155.6.4 table of permitted / conditional uses to allow Marina Clubhouse as a conditional use or a special use, excuse me, in the C3 district. We're going to be adding, proposing to add a new definition for Marina Clubhouse in section 8.3. And also number 4, we're amending section 155.655 C3 Commercial District 3 to add a new subsection K. We did send this out to departmental review. No comments from the police department, fire department, public works. There were no comments from them. The staff analysis is that this proposed text amendment only apply to the property of how it's written at number 6 Marina Street in the C3 commercial districts, of how everything's been written here. Staff feels like it is consistent with our town land use plan. This meeting was advertised in the Star News on September 24th, 2021. The staff's recommendation is that planning board review and discuss the proposed text amendment to the Riceville Yacht Club. And the attachments, we have the text amendment application, ordinance number 2021 and 1834. And Robert, if you could go to Matt's slide, I'd like to look at one of his slides there that shows the pool house and the deck area that I think would be helpful. Okay, if you, first of all, let me say, yeah, that's it, thank you. For the past 6 months, we have met with Sam, we have met with our contractor about this proposal. And staff, we couldn't approve this without some type of text amendment. So this is the existing clubhouse here. They have their pool here. And what they wanted to do, this purpose of this text amendment, I believe, is just for this right here. It's just for to extend their deck. They're saying they need more deck area for their guests. It's not going to create more people there, but just give more room for tables and chairs. So the reason why staff couldn't approve this is because of setback issues. It would have to have a 7.5 or a 15 or a 20-foot setback, so it would not work there. So this is the purpose of this, if this passes, is for this area right here. So we met with them multiple times. We couldn't find a way that we could do it within our ordinance, except through a special use permit eventually. But tonight you have that text amendment application. And if you got any questions for me, I'll be glad to try to answer them. That would be an uncovered deck area there. It would be elevated up. So if you've ever been out there on that walkway, you walk and this would be elevated approximately 7 to 8 feet above that walkway there.
The one with the lines in yellow would be
Yes.
elevated.
Oh, it's gone.
Yeah.
I wish we had that in this packet.
Yeah, I'm
Why
gonna
was
make
it that in
mention,
the
Matt,
packet?
you should know by now, we need more information. A lot of the staff board members were confused because we didn't know what we were looking at. And I didn't know what I was looking at until I met with Sam at 1 o'clock, so. Just
Are there,
include as much stuff as you can in these packets, make it easier for us.
are there other pages not shown in the package?
Well, did you see the rendering that we have up on the board? Can you see that now?
Yeah, I can see the graphic with the yellow outline.
Yeah, we were just saying, we wish that had been in the packet.
Right.
Is that the only additional page?
There's Matt has some additional slides that when he does his presentations, he'll have those, Neil.
Okay.
But they're not in,
They're not in this
none of it's
package,
in
no.
this packet.
No.
We kind of promised each other that we wouldn't go down this path again when we did
Yeah.
not have the complete set.
Like when Bevy Mark come up and I gave us that novel.
At the end.
Because I literally looked at this all day today off and on and was confused all day.
Sure.
Because I never saw that.
I didn't
That yellow
either.
line thing never even went through my brain.
We never got that sheet.
And you're telling me there's gonna be other slides
Yes.
from, you know.
Other slides meaning what? More requests?
No,
The yellow
I,
lines or just?
no, I think this is the major request right here
Okay.
is the in yellow here. But
And
there are other slides.
That's gonna set like 8 feet
In other words,
above the wall. Is there a walkway that runs underneath that?
yeah, if you
okay.
ever walk down this ramp here,
Mhm.
this is a ramp, this is
Yeah, I'm
another ramp.
familiar with that.
So
I just couldn't remember.
That will
if
be like 8 feet,
that's-
7 to 8 feet above that. So you'll be walking under the sitting area here
Okay,
to get to the dock office here.
They'll be sitting on top of it,
Chairs and things like that,
Uh-huh.
yes.
the yellow lines, is where
Yes.
they'll be sitting on top of those. And you're walking under it
Yes,
to get to the boats.
yes.
Why is there so much written here in this application for that? I don't understand.
I think there was when Matt gets up here, he can explain that. I think when you look at it, he looked at everything that could be an issue. And I think he tried to address it. And I think probably all these areas had to be addressed for certain things like this. Because when you do something with something that looks very simple, there may be other things you have to amend in that same district there, Neil.
It was very vague.
And so the setback was your problem.
The setback was the
Setbacks
issue,
Turned out
yes.
to be the issue.
Mhm.
Well, you never got that out of this.
I didn't either. I
I
just, it's so vague.
Yeah,
And I apologize.
well.
So
No
why-
apology necessary.
Why are we rewriting the definition or of a marina clubhouse and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff?
that's my question.
Yeah, I don't think we have one. So I think there was a reason we had to add a new subsection there and definitions, because a lot of times we may not have a definition.
Well, does what's there now conform with what's written here, or is this opening up a new set of doorways for some
Well, right
future
now,
development?
Well, it only applies to this property,
it
right?
only applies to
The
the
way it's
C3 Wrightsville Yacht Club properties only. And they need, they couldn't do it without a text amendment as far as the setbacks there.
When you say yacht club properties, that's the clubhouse?
Well, it's the clubhouse that I take it. Now, Matt will be up here. He could explain more if I think it just applies to this Wrightsville Yacht Club clubhouse.
6 Marina.
Yes, only. It's not about a floating restaurant or anything like that, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. But is this use considered non-conforming right now, just like an R1 house that got built but now it's non-conforming?
Well, I think we looked at it, it wasn't we couldn't fit it in as a permitted use. So it has to be like a conditional use. I don't think it's been there. It was permitted as the clubhouse with the pool 20 plus years ago, 25 years ago. But with this and setbacks, I think have changed from 20, 25 years ago, where they're a little bit more strict now than they are then. So.
I guess I'm going to have a concern about granting an exception, if you want to call it that, to a non-conforming property. And is that going to open up a can of worms, like down the road that, oh, I've got a non-conforming, but they got that, so I'm going to go down and ask for an exception. I have that concern from the get-go.
Okay.
I'm also looking for clarity as to what pinpoints the spot where this clubhouse can exist. I don't see it tied to any specific location on what could, I assume, be defined as the marina. So does this thing have wheels on it, so to speak? In other words, they can put a marina club house, whatever, elsewhere than what we're right now thinking we're looking at is the marina clubhouse.
Not sure if there's any other area to put it in. I think that's, I get your point, Neil. I don't think there's anywhere else they could put it there as far as any vacant property.
Well, what is the relevance of the term riparian area? I mean, we're either dealing with something that's on land or it's not on land.
Yeah, this is.
And when you throw the riparian area into the clause, it kind of says, well, you know, maybe it floats a little bit, maybe it doesn't.
Well, it is, maybe some of it's over water. So that's why they included that, I think, in there. The deck would be over some portion of the water there.
Well, then isn't it a dock?
No, I wouldn't think the top section is. I don't think CAMA would have any issues with it. I think when Matt gets up here, I think they already talked to the Division of Coastal Management. I don't think that would be an issue as far as CAMA or anything over the water like that.
So I just, I'm really confused. The clubhouse is there already, or it's gonna be there? Because you just said all we want to do is the yellow lines. which gives an indication there's something already there.
No,
you just
there's
added-
something underneath it,
Yeah.
but there's nothing above it there. The decking.
They're extending the decking
The
of
pool decking out.
the pool decking.
The pool
out.
deck.
So is it
Yes.
gonna be attached to that deck that's around the pool? Is it
Yes.
gonna be attached to that?
It would be
They
attached
just
to
wanna
that.
push it out?
It's expanded out, and then it'll be approximately 7 to 8 feet over the walkway when you walk.
So
on
what they
it.
want is just another place to sit, more or less, with umbrellas.
More seating.
Okay.
Any other question for Tony right now? We'll be able to have
Let's
another.
listen, let's see what we do by this minute.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. thank
So,
you.
Matt, if you wanna come forward, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board. I'm Matt Nichols. I represent the Wrightsville Yacht Club. And thank you for your consideration of this request. I know there's been a number of questions already, and I'm here with Sam Clary, the manager of the Yacht Club, and we're glad to try to answer any questions that you may have. I'll start at the beginning by apologizing for any confusion. I will say this has been a very challenging item for what is a very limited purpose, and that's simply to add more decking to an existing swimming pool at an existing clubhouse. And as I go through the presentation, you'll see that the challenges arise from the fact that the clubhouse or the yacht club is such a unique property. There's not really any other property like it on the beach, and what it encompasses in terms of its marina area and its clubhouse. And then that adding to those challenges are the existing ordinance, the C3 district ordinance, because we have difficulty and we can't meet some of those provisions. But keep in mind, what we're talking about has been there for years and years, and it's functioned very well there. And in fact, the area sort of developed around that. So we're not proposing any new uses. This is simply to add additional decking and seating at the existing pool. And I think when you see the renderings, it'll make a lot more sense. Some of these renderings we were working on and things, so they weren't included in this packet. So I do apologize for that. The other thing I would mention is that we're not asking this board to approve any projects tonight. This is simply for the text amendment. Now, we did apply for the conditional use permit last week, and that would come to this board on a totally separate item for project-specific comments, consideration, review, that sort of thing. So I know we're talking about the deck expansion and that sort of thing, but in talking with the town, we thought it was better to separate the two, have the text amendment on one night for the board's consideration, and then come back with the actual CUP proposal. We have submitted that, and hopefully that'll be on the board's meeting for next agenda. So with that said, I think if I go through some of the slides, it might help kind of clarify our thinking on this and then answer some of the questions. I'm sure there'll be more questions, and we're glad to try to answer them. So, Robert, I'll start with the first slide. We'll probably go straight to the second slide. So again, the proposing tonight, just the text amendment. It's not a project. We're not asking you to approve the decking or anything like that. But the purpose is very limited. It's to allow for a proposed expansion of the swimming pool deck, existing swimming pool deck at the existing clubhouse at the Wrightsville Yacht Club. So next slide, please, Robert. Just a general vicinity map. What we're talking about, that's 6 Marina Street shown in yellow. And I know the board's very familiar with the area generally. The property itself is unusual. It's kind of hard to tell from that scale, but it's less than 10,000 square feet. And I'll get to that point later in the presentation, but there's a small sort of high ground area that goes along the water there. And it's sort of hard to tell there, but so it's not a rectangular shaped lot. It's got an unusual sort of part that comes out to the south from it. Next slide, please. But the yacht club, the riparian area, and everything in that general vicinity is all zoned C3. And what we're proposing tonight is purely for the C3 district. So, next slide, please, Robert. This is, Tony covered this earlier, but what we've got, I know the board members are very familiar with the area. We've got the Blue Water to the north. We've got the existing yacht club shown there with the yellow area, the marina, obviously shown there with the riparian area, and then to the south of the condominiums, which is not part of any of this request. The things I would point out, this picture is helpful because it shows the pool is not very big. It's an older pool. It's part of the clubhouse. It's sort of an amenity, but it's not what you would say is like a destination pool. You probably wouldn't go to the clubhouse for the purpose of going to the pool. It's there. It's a nice amenity, but the seating is very limited. And you'll see in some of the next photos that we think that the proposed expansion will be a great addition to it, although we're not actually talking about adding a lot of square footage. Next slide, please, Robert. And this shows, as Tony mentioned, the general area of what we're trying to do, which is add decking above the existing decking at the yacht club. Okay, next slide, please, Robert. So this is the existing pool. As you look sort of toward, you can see the bridge tender in the background there. It probably has 7 or 8 lounges on each side. There's a table in each corner. Again, we're not talking about a new pool. We're not expanding the size of the pool. It's got a covered area sort of around it, and it's elevated. So that's an elevated pool. It's sort of hard to tell from that photo, but you're above the walking level there. You walk upstairs to get to this. Next slide, please, Robert. Here's a different vantage point looking more toward the dock side in the distance. And you can see basically it's water on the 2 sides. And when we're proposing the expansion, hopefully when the actual project is before this board, you'll see that even though we're talking about expanding out into the setbacks, there's really nothing there. We're not getting closer to buildings. It doesn't create safety issues with spacing with buildings. It's a very unique situation. And we're talking about property lines that in some ways are sort of out there. You don't really know exactly where they are looking at the property. So we'll go to the next slide, please, Robert. Here's just another view of the existing conditions. So the next series of slides will show you the renderings that the proposed addition would add to the yacht club. Next slide, please, Robert. I think Michael Kirsting's office did a great job with these renderings, but this shows you how there would be expansion roughly 10 feet to the south and maybe less than that, like 8 feet to the east. It's a little bit step up, maybe 2 steps up to the existing or to the proposed upper decking, but it would really open up the space. I'm not an expert in pool safety, but I think it would improve some safety with just having some more breathing room there. The chairs could be sort of pushed out a little bit. We just think it would be a great enhancement and addition to the existing pool. Next slide, please, Robert. As a different viewpoint, this is sort of looking, again, these are conceptual, but this would be looking back toward the clubhouse, and then the Blue Water Restaurant would be sort of in the upper left-hand portion of the screen. And again, this is a good visual because you can see it's going to go on top of the existing footprint of the decking, and that it's really, there is water there on both sides. And you can see the boat slip, and I think this is a good view to show how we fit in. We're not proposing any covering on it. It's really, it would be similar to what's there now. It would be shading like a canvas or trellis type material. We'll go to the next slide, please, Robert. Here's another view of, I think, shows a good rendering or idea of what we're trying to accomplish with this expansion. We really think it would be a huge enhancement to the existing conditions.
Where's your pool in that picture?
The pool is
Under those bushes.
Yeah.
Up
Yeah.
higher, behind the
Yes,
bushes,
ma'am.
kind of
so the
down.
yeah, the pool was elevated. The pool was elevated, but sort of flush with that level where you see the umbrella or the chairs. Again, that proposed pool decking is maybe a step or two above the existing pool level. If I can come around to the pool is contained within this structure here. So if you were sitting here, you, in this chair, you essentially poolside, but you'd be a couple levels up from the actual pool deck. I think there's one more rendering, I think might show that better. If we could go to the next slide, Robert, please. Okay, here we go. So again, that's sort of looking back toward the south and east and just gives you sort of more of a bird's eye view of the existing pool and where the decking would be with the sort of canvas sunshades on that. So
that's for people just to sit around.
just to sit around. And from what I understand from Sam, it's people will go on their boat or maybe before or after they go on the boat and they may go up there and sit by the pool. And it's, again, not really expanding the pool. Probably in many instances, people aren't really using the pool. It's just sitting around the pool.
But if no one ever really uses the pool, and I've been at that pool before, I know the area, I know what it looks like. What's the purpose of all of this?
Well-
Nobody really ever uses that pool, or you said nobody ever joins for the pool, or why this?
No, people do definitely use the pool. The pool is certainly not the main focus of the yacht club. But the pool is a great amenity. And from what I understand from Sam, and he can speak better to this, that there's becoming a younger membership there, and there's kids love to go to the pool. And it's something that you get off your boat and maybe you would go to the pool for a little bit. But the pool's just not big enough, and it's not conducive to one of these things where you're spending all day at the pool.
When you remember the club, you get access to the pool. As a transient, if a boat's come in as a transient and stays for a night, spends a night, they get access to the pool. Is that
I
correct?
believe that's correct. Sam? Yes, that's
So,
correct.
There's members that don't have boat slips, but just use the pool. Is that,
I don't know.
or I could just ask Sam that when he comes.
Okay. We want to make sure we answer your question.
Okay.
But I don't want to certainly downplay the significance of the pool. It's a very nice amenity. It's important to them, and that's why they want to enhance it and make it more user friendly and for the members and their guests.
Because there's no food or alcohol or anything served out there. If you want to drink something, you gotta have it in your own cooler. Was the only time I was up there that I saw that. It was for Janet cooler.
I believe that's correct, and people will get takeout or order food from the Blue Water and they go sit at the pool.
Mm.
And so it's really complementary uses there.
Okay.
Jim, I have some questions.
Fire away. Were you done, Matt, with your presentation? or-
I had several more slides if I could, but however the board pleases.
You want to wait for the rest of the slides, Neil, or you want to?
Yeah, I'll wait.
Okay.
Yes.
Robert, if we could go to the next slide.
I'll just add one thing. This is a fairly comprehensive additional pile of information we're getting. This is way out of context of what we agreed that we would do as a team and not accept being deluged at the meeting with new information.
Well, again, if I may speak to that, we wanted to provide some context as to how this text amendment request is coming about. And the best way for me to do that is explain the project, but the project is not before the board. And when we talked to the town, we didn't want to have them on the same night. So it would be very difficult for me to sit here in the abstract and talk about the text amendment without showing you all of these photos. And we were getting these renderings ready. They are, I think all of them are included in the CUP packet, except for those new renderings, but we'll make sure those are added to the packet. We just submitted the CUP application on the 1st. So we're trying to provide as much information to the board as we can to explain the text amendment, but certainly not arguing with Mr. Brady, point well made. We're just trying to make sure we're giving the board the information to understand why we're making this request.
Well, you're giving us the information, but you're not giving us the time to understand it, read it through, and have questions. You're kind of forced on the spot to ask questions of new information. So if we had this period of time prior to this meeting to see this, we would have questions. We could hear your presentation. So you can't have your cake and eat it too, so to speak.
Well, I'm sorry you view it that way. I'm trying to provide as much information as I can as it becomes, relevant to the process. Should we have gotten it to you earlier? I mean, I wish we would have at this point, if that's your concern, but I'm glad.
Yeah, that has been our
concern.
concern all along, and we have this problem all the time, and it's almost like I probably should have asked the board if they even wanted to hear it tonight. Because here we are, we don't have all the information. And I don't understand why this keeps happening over and over and over again.
Well,
I
that's
thought we were here to give a definition for a clubhouse. That's what's here.
Yes, ma'am, and that's my slide. Those are my slides that are coming up. So I'd like to focus on the text amendment if I can and explain what we're trying to accomplish. But I felt like I needed to tell the board that we submitted this separate application just on Friday for the CUP. Talked to the town. We wanted to do these separate hearings.
You
And
mean this one's gonna be separate.
this is going to be totally separate.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
ma'am. So the project itself, the proposed
Okay.
project would be before the board. If everything goes as scheduled, it would be before the board next month and we'll walk through the project. So we're not asking,
I got you.
we're not asking for we're certainly not asking for the board to approve any project tonight. That's not before the board. It's just the text amendment proposal. And like I said, this is a challenging thing, and the best way for me to explain it or try to explain what we're trying to accomplish is through showing how it came about. And that's what I was trying to do.
Well, and I agree that it's complicated, but I think it's hard to bifurcate them. So I think in the future, we just need as much information as we can. And just keep reminding us what we're doing that night. And I understand that we're just doing the text amendment or looking at it, so.
Yes, sir.
But
But I
we
would've
need
liked
all
to
this
see that
information
today.
we need all this information to make an educated recommendation to the alderman.
I understand. That's why I felt like I needed to present it to you and give you some background as to where we're coming from.
Gotcha.
But if I may get to the
It
next
just tells you
slide,
the definition of clubhouse.
Yeah.
we can go to the next slide, Robert, please. I'll move on to the text amendment. These are just additional illustrations. So to get back to why we're here for the text amendment, the existing C3 dimensional requirements are, when you get into a conditional use, they're quite limiting. For a conditional use, any conditional use in the C3, you have to have 10,000 square feet of lot. We don't have that, for one. Secondly, for minimum lot width, you have to have 100 feet. I think we have that with the unusual shape of this lot. The minimum front yard setback doesn't change between permitted use and conditional use. The two biggest, I think, limitations are F and G. So for a side yard setback in the district is generally 7.5 feet. But when you go to the conditional use, any conditional use, you have to go 20 feet for a side setback. And on the rear, you have to go 20 feet instead of the 7.5 feet. So when we talked to the town, as Tony mentioned, we were trying to see, can we do this as a permitted use? I thought we had some pretty good arguments or positions that this would come in as a permitted use. It's an existing situation. I won't go through those arguments, but we came to the conclusion that the town instructed us that this would need a conditional use permit and it would require text amendment. So that's why we're here. But I put this up here to show you that for a C3 property owner, if you're trying to develop anything by conditional use district, you've got a lot of challenges. And even on this lot, it would be very difficult to do anything. And so that's sort of what necessitates it. If I went back to the sort of the blueprint, you'd see that if we probably could make the whole thing work if it wasn't a conditional use permit. And this would have been something Tony or the town could have approved as a permitted use. We could have worked within the setbacks, but as was mentioned earlier, we're really here about setbacks and we're really here just about adding some decking to the existing pool. So Robert, if we could go to the next slide, please.
Can you go back? I'm trying to write, it'd have been nice to have had those numbers right there. Because obviously this is some stuff that when we're doing this text amendment, we need to know what the numbers would have been. So I can know why we're doing this, in this, we're asking to do away with setbacks. Well, what were the setbacks? But we didn't have all this information. Can I go back to the one before? I'm just trying to write down the rear side and front setbacks.
Yes.
Thank you.
That is straight, that's a photograph picture out of the ordinance. We didn't retype that in. That's straight out of. your
I understand that, but I. Normally,
It's not written there for you.
no, thank you. It hurt me to have to dig it up.
I think said another way, Cheryl, is it's very difficult sometimes to understand what we're really dealing with. Where do we even start to do any homework on the UDO when it gets as cluttered with all sorts of stuff? So yes, this would have been very helpful.
Okay. All right, you're good. Go ahead. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. So as Tony mentioned before, there's really 3 or 4 components to what we're asking the board to consider. One is to add a definition for Marina Clubhouse. There is not one there now. There's been a clubhouse there for years and years, and it's been zone C3 for years and years. So, but my guess is it was probably not an issue when the UDO was rewritten because it's never been an issue. I mean, it's functioned well down there. It's usually things come about because they're brought to the attention, and that's usually in a negative way. And you know, it just hasn't been. It's been a great land use down there. They've done a great job with the development, and so it's probably one of those things where no one thought about adding it in. So we're proposing to add a definition for Marina Clubhouse, and then establish specific criteria for the Marina Clubhouse, which I think is all a good thing. And one thing we've done it is to make sure that it's only by conditional use permit. So what we're proposing tonight is it's not giving anybody the right to come in and do anything by right. If someone wants to come in, they're going to have to come to this board, and then they're going to have to go to the alderman, and ultimately the alderman would have to approve or disapprove a conditional use permit or anything we're proposing tonight. So we're not proposing any new uses for what we're talking about. And secondly, anyone's gonna have to come through the conditional use process and get review and conditions put on and denial. The third item on this list is sort of more of a housekeeping thing, is we would have to add it to the table of uses, meaning it would be, a Marina Clubhouse would then be allowed in the table of uses only in the C3 district and only by conditional use permit. And then the last part is the part about the lot area exception and the setbacks. And that's a new subsection to address the fact that we can't, by conditional use, we really couldn't do much out there. We can't meet 20-foot setbacks. We can't meet the minimum lot area. And the thing that I would point out, and this is just a good example of, again, this will be brought to you as a specific project, but the setbacks we're talking about are setbacks really from nothing. These are setbacks from the water air area out there, because there's not really anything we're setting back from. It's sort of the property line that's out in the water.
Are they riparian setbacks?
They're property setbacks. I don't believe they have to do.
Oh, he's back.
Who's that?
We lost Neil for a minute, but he's back.
I don't believe they're a function of like riparian corridor or riparian setbacks from a camo permitting standpoint. It's tax parcel ID and how the property is drawn. So that's just what we have to deal with when we try to address we tried to do this by right, going and then just trying to meet setbacks.
Matt, would you please repeat what you just said about property lines? It was garbled a bit or echoed. I didn't really follow it.
Right. So yes, sir. So what I was saying was, when we're talking about a setback exception, the thing I would point out in this particular case is we're talking about a setback from a property line or area it's definitely not typical. We're talking about the waterway on both sides of where we would be seeking to apply this exception. So we're not creating any separation issues with buildings. I know at some point you run into fire code issues. You don't want buildings too close to each other. But in this instance, you're really talking about extending an upper deck to meet the lower deck. So we're not even going any further out than the existing deck, but just adding another level up there. So we're not proposing to be any closer to anything that it isn't
It's not already
existing
there.
current
Yeah.
conditions, yes.
I'm sorry, are you saying you don't know the dimensions of the lot and where the rear property line is?
No, sir.
And
I'm not saying that at all. I can show you on the slide.
okay, so you keep calling something a deck, a lower deck. Is that a floating deck or is that behind a bulkhead?
So it's not a floating deck at all. It's a fixed structure. And the floating deck, you walk down the ramp to the dock, where the boats actually dock. That's the floating pier, floating section. But the walkway that surrounds and walks, if you were to keep walking, you would get to the Blue Water Restaurant. That's all fixed structure.
I'm sorry, but that floats with the boats, so it must be floating.
No,
it's fixed on pilings.
it's fixed pier, fixed on pilings. It's not a floating structure.
It floats up and down. It's on the water. It floats up and down on the pilings.
No, sir. It's much like a pier. The pier doesn't float. It's a fixed pier, if you want to look at it that way. But
Johnny
it
versus,
just,
like Johnny versus.
but yes, ma'am.
It doesn't go up and down.
It doesn't go up and down with the tides. It doesn't fluctuate with the
It's
tides.
like the deck around Blue Water or any of those other restaurants. It doesn't, or Bridge Tender, it doesn't go up and down.
It's stable. It doesn't move with it.
I'll accept what you're saying.
Yeah, I was out there today, Neil. What they're saying is correct.
So is that within the property line or is it not within the property line? Because I'm curious as to what riparian areas are defined as and as it relates to land and
It's
property
within the
lines
prop-
on land.
Yes, sir. It's within the property area. I think Robert, if we could go back maybe 2 or 3 slides, right there. Okay. You can see on this slide, it's sort of faint, but you can see the red dotted line is what we have projected to be the setback. So if I may approach the screen.
Yeah, please do.
See any red dotted line.
It's hard to see if there's a
Yeah.
setback sort of.
Okay.
Robert's got your arrow
Yeah,
there.
okay, great. So the property line, see, we probably meet the rear setback. It's really what we're talking about is the side setback. We encroach into the side setback roughly 8 feet. And that's what we're here about. We tried to make this work just without having to go through a text amendment, without having to go through CUP, but there was just no way to do it. Just there's too many things in the ordinance to overcome, and that's why we can't. But it's all within the property line boundary. But really, what we're here about is this sort of area here. That's what it's about. And I know it has a different parts to it, and that's what I was saying at the beginning. Like, it's been challenging just to try to get the solution to this because of all the different parts in the code and because of the uniqueness of this situation. So that
What you want to do is to build this extra thing on top. There aren't any definitions of anything established. And so Tony has said, you can't do this and you can't do that because there's no rules that are stating where you put everything.
yes, ma'am, very well said. That's right. That's right.
And CAMA doesn't have to have anything to do with this because it's not.
We will have to get a CAMA permit of some sort, but it's not, we're not creating any boat slips. We're not,
Yeah.
it doesn't affect navigability. It's not,
Okay.
so, but that's very well said. Yes. So that's why we're here. And I know there were some issues before, like, is this a non-conforming use or what's the status of it is? It's been, we have tried to figure that out with the town at times. I mean, the one thing I would point out is the town did issue a conditional use permit for the fuel house and other things. So the town has certainly recognized that was it fuel house?
With the
club.
Sam's floating office
Yeah.
and then also the restaurant too.
Yeah, so it's gone through town processes and CUPs, at least 2 have been issued in relation to Red Squid Yacht Club. And To me, it was just one of those things that it's such a unique situation that ordinance doesn't really address it. But, you
And
know,
in doing this, there's no definition to a marina clubhouse. So what you're trying to do is establish what the marina clubhouse is in order to make this work with the definition.
that's part of it, yes, ma'am. So then, in fact, if we could go to, Robert, if you don't mind advancing a few slides, that's good right there. So the first part, I would just start with the definition of what we're trying to establish.
This is
Again,
what you're proposing.
yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Yeah, it's on page
Yeah,
25.
Yeah.
Well, I was looking at
Found what?
28.
25,
I was looking at 28. Hold on.
So-
It says proposed on page 25.
yeah,
So-
yeah.
Hold on.
So getting to the actual, what we're proposing as text would be for a definition for marina clubhouse. And it would be a structure serving as a private meeting and recreation space for the membership and guests of a yacht club and related marina, and including office space for yacht club and marina employees. A marina clubhouse shall be allowed only on property and related riparian area located within the C3 Commercial District 3 zoning district of the town pursuant to a conditional use permit issued by the Board of Aldermen for use in conjunction with the operation of a yacht club and related marina, meeting all of the requirements set forth in the section that I'm going to talk about, how limiting that section is. So it has to be in conjunction with the operation of a yacht club that meets all the criteria that we set forth, as I'm going to talk about here, which is very, very limited. So let's see, if we could go to the next slide. Okay, so here's the limiting criteria that you would have to meet before you could have a marine clubhouse.
Can I stop real quick? How is this going to be related to the CPAC Yacht Club Marina Clubhouse? Or is that not gonna be?
That's not in C3, is it?
That's what I
Well, it
was
is.
trying to see. Is it C3 or C4?
It's C3, yeah.
It is CPAC?
It would not apply, I don't think it would apply because of this subsection B that I'll discuss here.
Okay.
But I'll start with A, and that is, number one, you can only do what we're proposing by conditional use permit. And
This is, that's what we.
so
Yeah.
That's what I said.
it has to be by conditional use permit. The second criteria under B is you have to locate it within a marina adjacent to the Atlantic Intercoastal Waterway and containing at least 75 wet boat slips.
Is that written anywhere in our papers?
22,
Yeah,
page 22.
so my understanding is by virtue of B, this would be the only property that this could possibly apply to.
And why do you exclude CPAF? I
Well-
mean, in B, what tells you that, I mean, don't they have at least 75 wet slips?
Intercoastal
They're not
waterway.
adjacent.
Intercoastal waterway.
They're not adjacent to the water.
They're on a channel, not on the waterway.
Where, I don't know where the end of the intercoastal waterway ends.
Me
I think
either.
it's a
So
five by
let's-
four, yeah.
That's how we did the floating restaurant.
That was the same.
Yeah, but I'm going back to page 17. It says this is only going to apply to 6 Marina Street, period. And is that true?
Well, it's my understanding, that's the only property that's going to apply.
So why don't we just put that in the proposed text amendment? That it only applies to 6 Marina Street.
We would be fine with that. I'm not sure if the.
Well, under staff analysis, I did say that it would only apply on page 17.
Right, so I would feel more comfortable if that was in there,
I'm part of the,
Yeah.
text amendment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it clears up any ambiguity that could
Okay.
occur or closes loopholes. But sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I'm sorry.
That's a really good thought.
Well, on the next item,
Because it says, like, this says only to the property at 6 Marina.
Right.
It's stated there.
Right, but it's
Oh,
not,
this is staff
not,
analysis.
yeah, but it's not gonna be in
Oh,
the text amendment.
You
unless
want it
we-
in the text amendment,
Yeah.
I
yeah.
got
I
you.
mean, why not?
Which is on page 22.
Yes, the
27.
proposed text amendment is 22,
Yeah.
page 22.
is there any precedent for listing a specific property in a text amendment?
Seems like we always do this with limiting conditions, not referencing the specific property, just curious.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I just am afraid that it gets us into trouble.
I hear that too, and what we could do is just, we'll ask Brian about that.
Brian would have to.
But we're all in favor of limiting it, however.
Yeah, no, I understand what we're trying to do with the limiting conditions, and you seem to do that all the time. Why do we do that all the time if you could just do something property specific in a text amendment? Just ask them a question.
I'm not sure you can do a property specific, but I think it's up for the town attorney probably to ultimately determine. So if that's the board's recommendation, then certainly we'll
Yeah,
try to work with the town on it.
I'm pretty sure by state statute, you can't write a text amendment that applies to one parcel.
Will come in conditional use.
That's because the state statute was written by a bunch, excuse me, ma'am, by a bunch of attorneys. that Take 3 pages to describe what you want to accomplish. But anyway, go ahead.
Right, well, right then and there, I think is the issue with continuing this discussion is if we can't understand fully where this would be applied as it relates to something that's basically all about the Wrightsville Yacht Club property, whatever that is, what are we voting on? Now, maybe you can't legally say 6 Marina Street, but then we need to uncover here, what are the possible alternative ways that this can be interpreted and put in place, and it doesn't show up at 6 Marina Street. And of course, it also begs the question, why shouldn't it also apply to CPATH? Why should they be excluded? You know, we've heard many times, welcome to Wrightsville Beach, city of nonconformity. This is welcome to Wrightsville Beach, you know, welcome to a city of exclusive exemptions.
Well, I don't know if I'll be able to fully answer that question, but I would say I think that is taken sort of verbatim from the other text amendment for the Marina restaurant. And in that analysis, it was determined that the Atlantic Intercoastal Waterway limiting factor it's not going to apply to CPAT. They're not, from what I understand, they're just not on the Intercoastal Waterway. So I don't know. I don't think there's.
Is that your point, is to limit as many properties that this could affect to the smallest number?
Yes, so it'd have to be in a marina in existence today or whenever, if it's ultimately passed. It'd have to have 75 wet slips in existence. And it has to be adjacent to the Intercoastal Waterway. And so those limiting factors, there's no other property on the beach that qualify.
And that's why you wouldn't have to say 6 Marina.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes, yes.
So, and that, again, if it's any comfort level, that was the same analysis that went through with the approval of the previous project. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Tony, I think that B is verbatim from that.
Yes.
That's what we took it from.
Okay.
Yeah.
We keep interrupting you. Thank you.
Like I said, I keep going back to my original point. This has been challenging, but and I may not be doing the most efficient job of explaining it, but I appreciate your patience and let me try to explain. So, Robert, if we could go to the next slide, the next two, the sort of again the 4 limiting criteria. Talked about A and B. Robert, if we could go to the next slide, please, when you can. Okay, great, thank you. We say that you can have these, we just want to make clear that the Marina Clubhouse could include a pool, a hot tub, a deck, limited sort of retail food and beverage sales for the members and their guests. It's not a public facility in the sense of like a store, but a clubhouse may want to sell drinks or snacks or that sort of thing. And then the last factor would be, what we're proposing, or what we would ultimately be proposing with the project is it's not going to increase or require parking or affect utilities or all these other things you would look at. We're not adding any heated square feet. It's just decking. It's really just sort of breathing space, more space at the pool. So Robert, I think, okay. So this is what I kind of refer to as just kind of conforming the rest of the text to what we were proposing, which is adding it to the table of uses as a conditional use permit with prescribed conditions only in the C3. And then the last part of it is, we could go
What's
through
CS?
What's CS?
What's CS?
conditional use with prescribed conditions. I believe that's.
Conditional supplemental regulation.
Supplemental regulations. So you have to meet all the supplemental regulations that we just described in the
Above that.
previous two slides.
Uh-huh.
Yes. So we'll go to, I think, the last slide of the text, which is, this is where, if the board were inclined to go agree with the text amendment or some modified version of the text amendment, we would need to, we would have to address the lot and setback exception, because it's just the unusual shape of the lot, the dimensions. So it would be in approving a conditional use permit that the Board of Aldermen are not bound by those general requirements for the Marina Clubhouse. But again, it has to be Board of Aldermen approved. And the Board of Aldermen, there's so many criteria to get a special conditional use permit. If for any reason, if it was safety, certainly safety, you can't, if there's a safety issue, you're not going to get a conditional use permit. If there's a fire, fire chief objects, you're not going to get your conditional use permit. And there's so many safeguards in the conditional use permit process that if it's deemed appropriate, then the board.
Where's that K written?
The board would,
Is that what page?
Oh,
is it?
it's on page 26.
20.
26.
so I think that was, let's see, Robert, I think I had just a few more slides. I'll go through those real quick. The next slide, I think we talked about this. Next slide, please. This was covered, just a couple excerpts from the staff report. We're confident that it would only apply to 6 Marina Street and 3 commercial district. Next slide, please. Town staff found that the proposed text amendment is consistent with the town's CAM land use plan. Next slide. I added just some excerpts in here to show that we're in the we're in the commercial mixed use overlay section of the with the legend there, but if you go to the next slide, I won't read through all this, but there's a number of things in there that we think we do advance. Talks about provision of outdoor common space for people interaction. I think that all this is compatible. It would be compatible with the Riceville Beach landscape and architecture. And the land use plan favors sort of a variety of uses down in that part of the beach, and a mixture of uses complement each other. I talked about how folks can go get food at the Blue Water and then go sit at the pool and eat, and that seems to work well. So we think that we do meet the CAM land use plan, the intent of it. And then let's see, for the last slides, last couple slides, I just put a few of the benefits up here. It'll allow the Wrightsville Yacht Club to, well, what we're talking about tonight would allow us to move forward with a request, a separate request for this board's consideration on this specific project. And then ultimately have to go to the Board of Aldermen. But the thing I would emphasize is it's a conditional use process. So full review by this board, full review by the Board of Aldermen. The Board of Aldermen can put conditions on it if they do approve it. Consistent with the CAMA plan. And I would just, again, emphasize very limited in scope. I think it would only apply to 6 Marina Street. It's only going to be by conditional use permit, and it's a very limited purpose. All that said, it took me a long time to get to where we're at to try to propose this additional decking, but that.
So you're coming back for the decking?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Where we would be
So
coming back.
tell us why we're here.
This is really the code doesn't
got
allow
lost.
us to bring the project forward. We couldn't meet the code. It's not written to allow us for you all to even consider it.
Code meaning what?
The Unified Development Ordinance. So your zoning code, your zoning ordinance does not allow us to bring the CUP to you because I think the first thing in the CUP
Because
is
there's no definition?
well, we don't meet the setbacks, we don't meet the minimum lot area.
And
There's also no definition, and it's not in the table of uses. So it does clean up a lot, and But one of the things you would have to find if for any conditional use permit is you have to meet all the underlying ordinance criteria. We can't do that now. That's why we're here tonight, is to hopefully establish to where this is recognized in the ordinance and there's standards in the ordinance now. And we can come forward with our conditional use permit and if you all allow me, I'll go through the same I'll hopefully be more abbreviated next time, but it will be showing the slides and then we could have the architect here to talk about the actual components of it. But we wanted to provide background, but without the text amendment, we can't even make the request because we can't.
Right, so what page is the text amendment on?
Yes, ma'am. So
When you want
the text amendment in the board's packet begins on page 22.
About in the middle
That's
where it
what, that's
says,
what I've been reading all day.
Yes, so
Yeah.
on
Yep.
22,
Right, so what you need is this before you can get permission to do the decking.
Well, to
Be-
move
before
forward
they
with the
come
security.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
permission to ask for the deck.
So
and
what you need is this.
it was, I don't know how long ago that we asked the applicants to bifurcate these because it gets too confusing sometimes. We tried to separate the text amendment portion from the CUP
Right.
portion, but it's still
We
confusing.
got lost in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think one of Neil's concerns, and Neil, tell me if I'm correct or not, is the riparian area. That's a concern for him, you know.
Yeah, I have that same concern. Why do you even have to have that in there?
Yeah. that's what my
Related
question is.
riparian area sounds like a vague term that's undefined.
If y'all deemed it appropriate to take it out, that's fine. We just wanted to make clear that if the current decking and what we're proposing, we know will be out over the water. And we just didn't want there to be, if you all thought that was fine to take it out, that's fine. I was just trying to cover the fact that
Say that again, what will be out over the water?
the decking's out over the.
Well, it's over, no, it's not over the water. Not what Sam explained to me today.
Oh, okay.
Water at all. It's all over land, it's all over the exact, it does not leave the existing footprint.
Okay, so
So
I
how,
missed.
what happens area?
Sorry, I could
Yeah,
not
yeah.
hear Sam. I think that was Sam answer. I could not hear his answer.
He said it's not over water.
Yeah.
It's not over water.
The portion that we're talking about, the water comes
It
up
just
to.
comes above
It
what's
comes-
already
yeah,
there.
But we're talking about going above what's there, so I apologize.
So
why
you'd
is
be willing to
riparian
take the vague term out, related riparian area?
That's fine, yes, sir. That's fine.
Take
Type
that
an
out?
A,
Pardon me?
an A.
No, in
Yes.
the definition
In
of,
the definition.
Hey,
Yeah, it's
have it in
also
A.
got it in
oh, they've got it in
A
A
as
also.
well.
Yeah,
Marina clubhouse shall be permitted in C3 zone property and riparian areas.
That's
where are
fine.
you seeing that, Cheryl? What page you on?
22
I'm on
A.
22 too.
Under
Number
A.
You got it.
Yeah, I saw, that's what I was talking about. Oh, okay, I didn't,
So Jim's talking about, so where are you talking about?
where are
Jim?
you talking about?
It's
Jim?
in the proposed definition of marina clubhouse, and it
Okay.
says
What page are you on?
25.
Oh, okay.
So it's written in both
Yeah,
places.
there it is. It's on like the fourth line, fourth or fifth line, fourth line.
I think there's something still very loose about, this is all linked to something called a marina. And I really don't understand where the marina stops and starts, or starts and stops, sorry.
That was one of my
Um,
questions.
And, you know, if we can't put, you know, the parcel number 6, Marina Street in there, what can we put in there that isn't that entire strip of what I would call the marina? Maybe I'm not right, but, you know, from the bridge all the way, you know, around the corner at Mott's Channel.
Well, if you want to say the high ground or somehow link that to it, I mean, I think part of that was taken from sort of how we had structured the previous part with the floating restaurant. So did we kind of go beyond the scope of what we're doing here? In hindsight, maybe so. So taking the related riparian area out is fine. We're not proposing any riparian structures or floating structures or anything like that. So.
But there's
Fine.
only one marina, so there's not within that area, and you're defining marina with 75 boat slips.
Right,
So-
There's only one clubhouse.
One club.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask way earlier, and I said, well, I'll ask it later. So there's the clubhouse, then there's where the fuel is, is that considered the marina? And then there's gonna be the floating restaurant. Are they all three separate things, separate corporations or
Entities. Or,
with separate boards, or is it all one big happy family?
Sam said 3 separate.
It's 3 separate entities completely.
Can you speak up so Neil can hear, or maybe come up to the microphone, please? Yeah, thank you.
We don't-
No, I don't
just
think,
being
I think everybody's okay, except Cheryl.
No, I'm fine. I'm actually flustered. I'm trying to
Good
not get in
evening,
trouble for
everybody.
not wearing my mask on government property. I'm not speaking.
There are all separate entities. The yacht club owns a riparian right around the entire boat basin there, but it's only 2 feet. Everything else is condominiums. Our common area clubhouse, swimming pool is the only other space that we own along the water. The fuel tank track is owned by Storage Services LLC. The Commodore Club will not be owned by us. That's a separate entity in itself. We are just Wrightsville Yacht Club, and that's who we represent. We own the parking lot across the street, which can only be parking. There's no other place for a marina clubhouse structure to wander around the property. It's very, very mission specific.
Sam, I didn't hear everything you said in the beginning, so let me just ask a question. Did you say that the only land property that is Wrightsville Beach Marina is number 6? And parking lot across the street?
Yeah, Wrightsville Yacht Club actually is the parent company. And we own 6 Marina Street. It's broken out into smaller tracts that surround them. There's 4 tracts of property that go all the way around the boat basin and the parking lot across the street. That's what Wrightsville Yacht Club owns.
So the condominiums.
The condominiums don't have riparian right. We own that because we own the boat docks.
I understand, but you own the condominiums?
No, we do not. We own the 1.5 foot of land in front between the condominiums and the water, where the walkway is. There's a walkway perimeter, and that defines the property.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yes, sir. Leah, did you have more questions for me?
No, that was it.
Okay.
I have a question for you while you're up here, Sam. What's this structure going to be built of? Is it going to be wood, steel, concrete?
Sound like concrete.
No, it'll be just a wood deck. Just like what we have now. It's we've added 16 more slips at the Zimmer property. We're adding 4 more condominiums. We have pool rights that we give to all the condos on the street. It's our meeting area. And it's over the past 5 years, it's gotten more and more use as our clientele has become more Wilmington based. People love to come down, let the kids swim in the pool, watch the sunset. It's become very popular, especially Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And the space is limited to probably, I think there's 11 chase lounges and 4 tables. This might give us 6 or 7 more chases and 3 or 4 more tables. I mean, it's not a huge number, but we're lacking space. And it gets too congested around the pool area. We can't walk around comfortably. And for a multitude of reasons, it's just too cramped.
Well, the only reason I was asking, and Tony, I know you can't answer this, but I'd feel a little bit more comfortable if we went back and asked the fire chief about, fire out there. Is he comfortable able to get to this location? I mean, now it's elevated, you've got people under it, you've got people on it, and you've got that synthetic fiber above it, and it's pretty remote from land. If you could just ask him one more time to take a look at it, just make sure
Because
we're
if he
being
looked at
safe.
this, he didn't get that.
Pardon me?
The fire chief never got this. Of course, he's gonna come back with this
Yeah, I was
plan.
gonna say, we'll certainly,
Yeah.
make sure that that's addressed and.
That's a good point. Fire chief did not see this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did, because we just submitted the
Yeah.
actual plans, and we knew that was gonna be separate hearing, separate
Yeah.
review.
So that,
It'll be
that
noticed
new
separate.
one will go to the fire chief.
Good point.
I'll be back. And-
Ask him to look hard at it. Okay,
A lot of
so,
Confusion. This was a lot of confusion for me today and a lot of vagueness for deck. I never saw deck. Out of all this, so.
so what's the pleasure of the board going forward?
I would like to maybe, I don't know how everybody feels about this. I'm kind of right now leaning towards tabling this till I'd like to physically go out and look and because if I'd have known deck, I would have found the time today to run out there and try to look. And then all the stuff that we saw, the slides today, I would like to see that on paper.
The thing is, the deal is, we're not doing that tonight. We had that deck and
That's the
he would have
CUP.
been better kind of maybe not to have done that.
Yeah.
He's just, what he was trying to do is
So-
lay the groundwork for why he's here. We
Okay,
have no reason to go look at decking yet,
yeah.
because he has not proposed that to us.
So you're okay with voting tonight on the text amendment?
You know, I've been totally, like, since I've been reading, I mean, all this never even came in my mind.
Mine
I
either.
I was just trying to figure out why we are needing the definition for marina and all that. But, you know, if y'all are okay with the meaning, the definition, I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't know how do you think you can make it better? What would you need to make that a stronger definition or no more? What would you need?
Striking the riparian area was.
Yes,
Yeah.
that
Can
was,
they
that was a
agree to
big,
that?
thing.
Yeah,
Taking that out.
I have to say, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but I think what he was trying to do is what we had requested was to keep them totally separate. And so I think when you started talking about all this other stuff, we're like, wait a minute,
Right.
are we trying to
Okay.
sneak something in?
Yeah, he's
but
really
it's-
trying to help us, but at the
Right.
same time,
Yeah, so I can.
That's where it gets difficult to separate the two.
Yeah, so at first I was thinking maybe we should, but then when we talked about the whole focus of what we're doing tonight, which I think you brought up, Kitty is, I don't know,
Neil, what are your thoughts?
The riparian area one was a concern, and that being stricken out is helpful. I wonder why it gets focused on the intercoastal waterway. I don't see why this should exclude a sea path possibility.
couldn't see that coming.
Yeah, but I think the whole point when we do text amendments, we try to get something that affects as few properties
that's true.
as we possibly can, so that somebody else don't piggyback in on it.
So what he's saying is you could use the dock, the 72 boat slips, but you don't have to use the intercoastal waterway. Neil?
My concern is why is sea path is a legitimate, marina, and why is it excluded? Why do we feel that they would simply be piggybacking? I mean, they make the investments in their infrastructure just like Riceville Yacht Club.
Right, but they can also come before the planning board and present what they would like in a separate.
Whenever we've had text amendments in the past, we've always
Yeah.
tried to limit the number of properties that it affects so that we don't dig ourselves in a hole.
Right.
That's all they tried to do, I think. I don't think it was anything malice. It was just a
Right.
way to
I
make
agree.
it
I
one
think CPAC
specific
can
piece
come
of
and plead their
property.
own case.
Well, I never mentioned the word malice. It's just.
I didn't say you did, I'm just saying, I think that's what he was trying to do, was to make it as limiting as we possibly could.
Yes, I agree.
I'm the one always looking for malice, so I'm not referring to you, I'm referring to me.
Well, to your point, Neil, I think that the people at CPAC are around enough that they would have seen the posting and known about this hearing. And if they did have an immediate need, they would come to this, but I think it will be beneficial for them when they do come, if they want to eventually, to piggyback off of this case and say, okay, they got this, we kind of need this other stuff. And they can always apply.
It's whether they have an existing piece of property. Do they?
Yeah.
They probably do.
Yeah, they've got a
Yeah.
clubhouse.
Probably
there.
do. Yeah.
I'm maybe need to disclose that I'm on the board at CPAC. So I don't know if I need to recuse myself from this
I mean, do you
conversation.
see any conflict that?
I mean, the CPAC would fit this definition, but for the intercoastal waterway limitation. You know, we have more than 75 wet slips. We have a clubhouse that serves as office space, meeting space, etc.
Would be no reason we couldn't consider them, would it?
No,
No. Tony?
It'd save us some work because if they come back, we're gonna have to do this all over
Seems to me it would
again.
be a pretty easy thing to do to come back as CPAC if
Yes.
we desire to do so, to have the definition expanded to include
Mott's Channel.
something other than the intercoastal waterway.
Yeah, I think what we're here tonight for is just for the
Just one
Wrightsville
project.
Yacht Club.
Yeah.
If someone else wants to come in, they can at any time if they
I
choose.
was a little
And I in no way can speak for the
But I'm
board.
good about it.
I'll make a motion.
Yeah, let's make a motion.
Let's do this.
So I kind of heard some mumbling about we
Yeah.
need to make a motion.
We can hear you down here.
Okay. Someone want to come forth with a motion?
Terry? I heard you and Cheryl.
Y'all motion and second.
So I'll make a motion to approve the petition for the text amendment for 1.55.7.31 Marina Clubhouse definition. Do we 1.155.6.4, the table of permitted conditional uses to allow Marina Clubhouse as conditional use in C3 district. And part 3, the new definition for a Marina Clubhouse in section 8.3. And amend section 155.6.5.5 C3 Commercial District 3 to add new subsection K. But we need to exclude the related riparian
Yes.
area.
Yes.
So that would be in part 1 under Marina Clubhouse, as well as part 3 under the proposed definition for Marina Clubhouse.
Yes.
So.
We're just taking out that riparian.
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're good on both of those
Both.
sections.
Both take places. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Jim,
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to ask a question of my fellow colleagues on the board. If anybody on the board who might be about to vote in any way gains value from this being adopted.
I have a boat slip at Wrightsville Yacht Club and I can recuse myself if so desired. So there's no monetary benefit, but I will not vote to make it fair.
Well, I did, Neil, and answer your question. I did ask Brian Eads that question today, and he said, if any member is either a member of this board is a member of the Wrightsville Yacht Club, but feels that they can make a fair and impartial vote, then you should, have the right to vote. And he said, especially if there is no monetary gain. And I understand, Sam, that your membership her membership cannot be sold for monetary gain, according to your bylaws. So it's your call, Cheryl. I mean,
I'll let y'all start voting and I'll figure it out.
I mean, that's it, because I voted on the surf club. amendment, and I was told that I could, even though
Yeah,
when we
basically what-
expanded the decking at Surf
If you
Club.
feel that you can be fair about your
Right.
decision.
Yeah,
It
basically,
might have been more than, yeah, fair, I will promise you that, so.
I asked the question not to subject somebody to the scrutiny of, I don't trust your judgment or value, but just to make it transparent that if there's anybody on the board that has a vested interest, significant or insignificant, we just know about it, that's all.
yeah, good point. There's no malice.
I'm always looking for that.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Opposed? Okay, Robert, put on the record that Cheryl did abstain. So it was 6 and 1 abstention. 6 aye.
Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Sorry for the scolding. We'll get it right eventually.
It's hard when you start figuring out.
Well, I think, I think we need to maybe talk about it another time, but maybe we didn't do the right thing in trying to bifurcate these
Yeah, I
things.
wasn't aware of all the information that was slides that got them this afternoon.
But again, that doesn't, I think he was just trying to help us understand what.
And it did, but then it's convoluted.
It did kind of confuse it all,
We're
but
still,
Yeah,
he was
we're still
thinking
on
he was
record,
helping
which I
us.
think is good discussion.
I don't know how he could have,
Done that any differently.
yeah.
I think what happens when it gets jumbled like that is the fundamental questions that we have get lost. And most of the time is him getting back to his presentation rather than us getting to the bottom of issues that are bothering us. I know I had to keep asking the same thing several times because it gets pushed aside from my point of view in not getting a definitive enough answer on some things. So that's why I push back against it. Enough with the slides because I can't see them anyway very well, but I really do appreciate being able to do this remote. So.
Yeah, that's great that's working out, but I guess, Tony, what I'm hearing is more information we get, the easier it's gonna be,
Yes.
I think.
I've
And just-
been confused about this all day. I have read this thing 100 times a day, and I've been confused and.
Well, I think I get
I don't
confused
think
what's
he
the
didn't really
text
mean
and what's
to-
condition.
Confuse us. It
Well, he
just-
threw the decks and everything, and then I started, and that was just getting ahead.
Like,
of
then
me.
he says, this is all I want, and I'm like, what? Because that was not even in my notebook.
Well, and the other thing I think we all should try to do, and I know it's sometimes difficult, is, and I wouldn't have gone over there, but Sam called me and wanted me to come over. And I'm glad I did, because once I saw the site, same thing happened when we did the Catholic church down there, and I walked in the back of the church. I just rode my bike down there one day and I'm like, whoa, this is not.
That is really, that was one of my goals, is I never voted on anything that I hadn't seen first.
And I should have
And
done
we
that
should,
today.
yeah,
I
we should
didn't-
all do
I
that.
didn't
Yeah.
know that's what it was back, but all day today, I thought it was related to something else
Yeah,
because of that,
yes.
that situation we talked about earlier. And then that's where all the chatter was coming from.
Yeah, well, what happened, and I know we're still on, but live, but everybody needs to know this. Port City Daily ran an article about this hearing tonight and said it was related to the floating
Yeah, that's where it's coming from.
restaurant. And they retracted it just today, and the reporter sent me an email and said, very sorry, apologize, but all that misinformation got out in the public, and then Leanne's hearing it from people and everybody else is hearing.
My
it from
phone was
people, and
ringing.
I even told Brian Eads, like, I didn't hear anything about that coming back.
There's a lot of stuff on that Port City Daily that needs to get left off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so anyway.
So that's where all the confusion started, because I thought all along it was about the clubhouse. Then I got a phone call that said it wasn't. It was about the floating restaurant, which made me shift gears and thoughts and everything else, and that's how it all got. And I didn't know
More
they
confusing.
retracted it.
So we need to move on to. old
Yeah,
business.
I was gonna ask all three. I'm starving to death too,
Me
so
too.
any other business from the chair, board members or staff?
Yeah, I have two things run by you. the Board of Aldermen has met and they've come up with a policy and guidelines for naming town assets. This is gonna be coming up to us next month. It's gonna be the planning board's duty to make a recommendation on this. The first one we're gonna get, and I will send this, the policy to you tonight or in the morning,
Okay.
start reviewing, is naming a street. So, so you'll review this, along with the policy and the guidelines. We'll make a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen for this, if you agree with this. So the first one, I'll send the application to you tomorrow and the policy and the guidelines for that for our November meeting. So that's something new that you'll be doing.
Now, what, did you say that we're gonna do naming of a street, or it's just the policy?
Well, this one's gonna be a street after a certain individual.
Okay,
There could be other assets.
so the board hadn't gotten that policy. Yes, they have.
The board's already come up with it.
Yes.
And so
But we
I'll
have
be
to
forwarding
okay.
that to you tomorrow.
So we
And,
have a policy in place,
Yes.
we're
So
gonna
we-
follow this
right.
guideline, okay.
So we have our first application. I'll send that to you tomorrow for our November meeting. The other thing is, you've heard some things, Robert and I talked about 160D. There's been some changes to our UDO and the way you advertise and things like that. That's coming to us. That's gonna come fast. We've been looking at this for the past, and we don't have a lot, we don't have a lot of input to it. It's here, you have to accept it, and you move on. So you'll be getting that draft, probably, you could get it this week to act on in November or December.
Okay,
But it's in effect now, no matter what we do. If you say, we should have already adopted it, but we have a firm that's helping us with it. I will send it to you. It's renumbering some stuff, but we don't have any input on it. It's just, here you go, you got to do
Is
these
this-
things.
coming from the state.
Come from the state, yes, sir. And we'll get that to you as soon as we can, and for y'all to review. Other than that, that's all of it.
And don't know of anything else coming up next month,
Well-
other than
You know,
CUP on this,
the
right?
CUP.
We know we have the CUP, so once I get this, I will send that to you tomorrow or the next day or two. I'll make sure the police chief gets it and the fire chief. I thought we were gonna have another, we can't call it a CUP anymore, special use permit.
Oh, yeah.
Special use permit coming up for the C5 area, the text amendment. That's going to the board this month in 2 weeks. We still haven't got that application, but
You're talking about for the Shell station?
yeah, for the
Kevin.
station. Other than that, that's it.
Okay.
Right. Uh,
Question,
oh,
question for Tony.
Yeah.
Tony, can you comment on what's going on with the property at the end of East Augusta?
Well, I think we can do this. I can't comment because it could be a potential lawsuit still going on.
Yeah,
But I can tell you this, I could send you the third-party hearing that was denied for that property owner. If the town manager allows me to, you can see some input from that his appeal, third-party appeal was denied by the Division of Coastal Management. I've heard he's moving it on. So if the town manager allows me, I'll be glad to forward it to all if you want to
I'd
read
love
it.
to know.
thank you. Yes, I would like to see it.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Notice that I was standing up.
I'll
I only
second.
got one chance to stand up. I can't go back down and get back up again.
I'm standing up with it, so.
Is Kitty making a motion?
I made a motion.
I'll second it.
Aye.
All in favor, say aye.
I know, I'm right behind you, I gotta go.
I thought we were getting ready to